You think 1970s food was just poor canned goods and meals lacking nutrition? Then think again. This was the period when America was forced to get creative in the kitchen. As inflation at times soared above 10%, gas prices surged, and grocery money became a weekly concern. At that time, beef cuts could cost hundreds of dollars per pound, and homemakers had to figure out how to still serve beef to the whole family while staying on a tight budget. Ground beef became the practical solution. These 25 ground beef dishes may have been forgotten over time, but as soon as you finish watching, every single one of these recipes will come back to life in your kitchen once again. Comment number 1 to get started. Number 1. Porcupine meatballs. Don't let the name fool you. In American kitchens of the 1970s, no actual porcupines were ever harmed. Porcupine was just a playful name for ground beef meatballs mixed with raw rice. As they cooked, the rice would puff up and poke through the surface like tiny quills. This dish showed up everywhere at church potlucks and PTA dinners, where each family brought a pot big enough to feed everyone. Some people still remember their first taste of porcupine meatballs in a church basement, on a long folding table, right next to a Jell-O salad and a pound cake. The recipe was simple: ground beef, raw rice, chopped onions, eggs, rolled into golf ball-sized pieces, then set in a thick tomato sauce made from Campbell's soup. As it simmered, the rice soaked up the sauce and expanded, making the meatballs tender. Porcupine meatballs were a testament to the resourcefulness of Americans at the time, turning cheap ingredients into something special enough for a Sunday dinner, yet familiar enough to make everyone feel like they belonged at that table. Number 2. Tater tot casserole. In the 1970s, if there were one dish that embodied the spirit of American convenience, tater tot casserole would be hard to beat. In Minnesota, people had a more affectionate name for it: hot dish, something filling, cheap, and easy enough to feed the whole family after a long day. It brought together 3 things Americans have always trusted: ground beef, canned cream of mushroom soup, and golden frozen potato cylinders. Tater tots had been around since 1953, but it wasn't until the 70s that they really took off, as home ovens and canned foods became standard. The recipe barely needed a recipe. Ground beef was browned with onions, then spread evenly into a 9x13 dish. Cream of mushroom soup was poured straight from the can. No mixing, no seasoning. Frozen tots were lined up neatly on top like a geometric map. 40 minutes in a 350 degrees Fahrenheit oven, and it was done. The dish showed up at church potlucks, neighborhood meetings, and even at funerals. Number 3. Old school goulash. Every grandma in the Midwest had her own version of the skillet meal. Calling it goulash might make Hungarian chefs shake their heads, but in American kitchens, it was always known as American chop suey. A one-pot, one-pan lifesaver for weeknights when mom got home late and there was no time to think. The dish came out of post-war school cafeterias, then exploded in home kitchens during the tight-budget 1970s. Ground beef was browned with onions until everything turned dark and fragrant. Then in went dry elbow macaroni, canned tomatoes, and whatever vegetables were left in the fridge. Everything cooked together, no separating, no fuss. The pasta soaked up the tomato meat sauce, turning tender and slightly sweet. If you had bell peppers, use them. If you didn't, add corn. If it was right after payday, you could sprinkle on some cheese. Number 4. Beef and macaroni skillet. Before the name hamburger helper showed up on grocery store shelves in 1971, American kitchens already had a helper of their own. It was a cast iron skillet, a bit of ground beef, and some dry macaroni. Beef and macaroni skillet was born to answer the question of how to make dinner without a sink full of dishes. The ground beef went in first, broken up with a wooden spoon that's about as old as you are. Garlic powder was sprinkled in, since fresh garlic was still unfamiliar to many families back then. Dry macaroni, beef broth, or a dissolved bouillon cube, and a generous squeeze of ketchup or spoonfuls of tomato sauce, all simmered together. Finally, a handful of shredded cheddar cheese. Quick, cheap, and filling, just right for a 30-minute dinner. Number 5. Meatloaf muffins. In the 1970s, someone realized a very practical truth. Meatloaf was delicious, but it took way too long to cook. If you broke it down into muffin-sized portions, dinner would be ready much faster. And so meatloaf muffins were born, just in time for busy families juggling sports practice, PTA meetings, and evening Tupperware parties. Ground beef was mixed with milk-soaked breadcrumbs, eggs, chopped onions, and just enough ketchup to give it a slightly sweet taste. The mixture didn't go into a loaf pan, but was scooped into a greased muffin tin. In about 25 minutes in the oven, each little portion was perfectly cooked. Unlike traditional meatloaf that only crisps around the edges, kids loved these because they felt like their own personal meal. And moms loved them because the extras could be frozen for an emergency dinner. Comment number 1 below if you still remember the recipe for this dish. Number 6. Beef jambalaya bake. In the 1970s, Americans started getting more curious about regional cuisine, though everything was often filtered through Midwestern tastes. Beef jambalaya bake was born when the elaborate Louisiana jambalaya met the convenient casserole culture of the suburbs. A cooking process that normally took hours was cut down to about 45 minutes in the oven. Ground beef was sautéed with the holy trinity of onions, bell peppers, and celery, though many families use dried onions for convenience. Canned tomatoes and white rice were added in. The 1970s touch was clear when seasoning was replaced with a packet of Lipton onion soup mix instead of a carefully simmered broth. Everything was placed in a baking dish, just enough water added to cook the rice, covered, then baked until the grains turned tender. It wasn't authentic New Orleans jambalaya, but it was spicy enough, bold enough to shake up a weekday dinner. Number 7. Hamburger biscuit bake. There were nights in the 1970s when it was almost 7 o'clock, Dad wasn't home yet, and Mom needed something fast so the whole family could still eat. Hamburger biscuit bake often showed up at just that moment. All it took was a casserole dish and a few pantry staples. Ground beef was cooked through, then mixed with cream of mushroom soup, sometimes with a handful of frozen vegetables tossed in for color. That mixture was spread evenly across the bottom of a 9x13 dish. The top was what made it special. Cold biscuit dough, torn into quarters, scattered over like a savory cobbler topping. Number 8. Beef and potato hash casserole. During the economic struggles of the 1970s, breakfast for dinner became a habit, and beef and potato hash casserole was the neatest answer to that. It was cowboy meets suburban convenience, ground beef instead of corned beef, frozen hash browns instead of fresh potatoes. The advantage was speed, from counter to oven in under 10 minutes. Ground beef was brown, then mixed with thawed hash browns, cream of celery soup, sour cream, and shredded cheddar cheese. Everything was poured into a casserole dish, topped with buttered crushed cornflakes for crunch. The hash browns turned soft inside, crisp around the edges. The beef was rich, the cornflake topping added contrast. Serve with a fried egg on top or eat it on its own. Tasty, time-saving, and that was enough. Number 9, mock prime rib patties. In the 1970s, the mock trend hit its peak with mock prime rib patties. When a real prime rib could eat up an entire week's grocery budget, home cooks looked for ways to turn ground beef into something that felt fancy, but only cost 50 cents. The beef was mixed with breadcrumbs, Worcestershire sauce, garlic powder, and one very era-specific ingredient, liquid smoke. That little bottle brought the scent of campfire into the suburban kitchen. The meat was shaped into thick patties, seared until the outside turned dark brown, then topped with a sauce made from condensed mushroom soup mixed with red wine or beef broth. Presentation mattered. These patties weren't served on buns, but plated like steak, maybe with a baked potato and some canned asparagus on the side. Every time you ate this dish, it felt like being at Peter Luger Steakhouse, except there was no waiter and you had to serve yourself. Number 10, beef and cabbage skillet. In the mid-1970s, when grocery budgets were tight, cabbage became a hero in the kitchen. At just about 15 cents a pound, this humble vegetable could stretch half a pound of ground beef into dinner for a family of 5. Irish and German immigrants had brought the tradition of cooking cabbage to America generations earlier, but it was the recession of the 70s that brought it into every kitchen. The dish started with ground beef browned with onions in an olive green electric skillet, the wedding gift used nearly every day. As the meat rendered its fat, thick-cut cabbage was added, sizzling and wilting down, soaking up Worcestershire, salt, pepper, and sometimes a can of tomatoes if the grocery budget allowed. The cabbage turned soft, sweet, and flavorful, served hot with buttered white bread for sopping up the juices. Today they'd call it a one-pan wonder. If just for one dinner you could go back to the 1970s to eat this with your family, would you choose to return? Comment 1 if yes and 0 if not. Number 11, chipwreck casserole. With a name that sounded like it came straight out of a church cookbook. Someone looked at ground beef, potato chips, and condensed soup and decided to bake them all together. The result is still debated to this day, but it showed up at potlucks everywhere from Texas to Michigan. The method was both simple and tidy. Ground beef, browned and mixed with cream of mushroom or cream of chicken soup, formed the base. It was layered into a casserole dish. Then came the controversial part. What kind of cheese would taste best? Cheese was a family-by-family decision, but the pre-shredded orange kind, sold in bags at Kroger and A&P, always gave everyone pause. Number 12, beef tamale pie. After all the casseroles made with potato chips and canned soup, the 1970s kitchen moved on to beef tamale pie, a dish that sounded like a religion but was really a lesson in culinary architecture. This was the American take on shepherd's pie, swapping lamb for ground beef and adding corn, because in that decade, Americans put corn in everything. The name came from its structure. The filling sat on the bottom like a foundation, mashed potatoes on top like a dome. Meat and vegetables were layered on the bottom, mashed potatoes spread over the top. Out of the oven, that potato layer turned into a golden crust with a soft center, shielding the bubbling beef mixture underneath. This dish could feed a family of 4 for under $3, perfect for the end of the month. Number 13, hamburger spoon bread casserole. Hamburger spoon bread casserole was the moment two worlds met in a 1970s kitchen. Spoon bread, a southern specialty somewhere between cornbread and pudding, was combined with ground beef in true casserole fashion. This dish deliberately blurred the lines, part main course with a cornbread layer on top, part cornbread hugging the meat inside. And the answer was both at once. Cornmeal was cooked with milk, eggs, butter, and baking powder, creating a pourable batter softer than cake mix. Ground beef sautéed with onions, sometimes with green peppers, was spread into a buttered dish. The cornmeal mixture was poured over the top, seeping into the beef as it baked. In the oven, the spoon bread puffed up, turned lightly golden, and crisped just a bit on top, while underneath, meat and bread melded into a soft, pudding-like texture, scoopable with a spoon. Southerners recognized the spoon bread heritage, while Midwesterners saw a familiar casserole. The dish existed because it refused to pick a side. Number 14, Sloppy Joe pie. When regular Sloppy Joes didn't feel fancy enough for Sunday dinner, but inflation over 10% in the mid-1970s made real roasts a luxury, Sloppy Joe pie was born. It was a time when America was struggling with rising gas prices, wages that couldn't keep up with the cost of living, and families trying to save money while still holding on to a sense of togetherness. The filling started just like a classic Sloppy Joe. Ground beef sautéed with onions, mixed with ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, and a bit of brown sugar to get that familiar sweet and tangy flavor. But instead of going into a bun, the mixture was poured into a casserole dish and topped with cornbread batter, whether from a box or homemade. As it baked, the cornbread rose up golden and crisp, soaking in just enough of the meat juices to turn tender and flavorful. This dish often showed up when guests dropped by unexpectedly or at the end of a weekend. Number 15, Salisbury steak. Before frozen TV dinner trays made Salisbury steak feel bland and forgettable, it was once a clever way to turn ground beef into a dinner that felt a little special. Named after Dr. James Salisbury, who believed beef promoted health, the recipe caught on quickly because it made a single pound of meat look and taste like expensive steak. The secret was in the binding. Breadcrumbs, eggs, and a bit of milk made the beef tender, plump, and easy to shape. The meat was hand-formed into oval patties, seared until golden brown, then set aside. In the same skillet, onions were slowly cooked down to caramelize. Then beef drippings and flour were stirred in to create a thick, rich brown gravy. Home cooks often made extra patties to freeze for a quick dinner later. Kids believed they were eating real steak and just hoped mom would give them a bigger piece next time. This was the working person's steak, born out of scarcity but full of creativity. Number 16, ketchup glazed meat patties. When served with mashed potatoes and green beans, ketchup glazed meat patties always made dinner feel more elaborate than it actually was. Few people realized ketchup wasn't just a dipping sauce, but a cooking ingredient that could make cheap ground beef taste like it had been braised for hours. The patties started off simple, just ground beef mixed with breadcrumbs, eggs, and a few seasonings. They were shaped into individual portions, ready for the most important step. A glaze made from ketchup, brown sugar, vinegar, and sometimes Worcestershire sauce was brushed on before cooking, then brushed again as the meat cooked through. During that process, the sweet and tangy mixture caramelized into a glossy mahogany brown crust. Number 17, Midwest meat pie. Midwest meat pie was a comfort food remembered for its ability to stretch a small amount of meat into a filling meal for the whole family. In farming communities across Midwestern states like Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana, This dish often showed up on weeknights when dinner needed to be hearty and made ahead of time. Ground beef was browned with onions, then mixed with chopped potatoes, carrots, and whatever vegetables were left in the kitchen. The mixture was lightly seasoned and placed into a homemade pie crust made from flour, shortening, and cold water. A top crust was laid on and sealed, locking in the flavor and making dinner feel a bit more special than usual. As it baked, the meat juices soaked into the bottom crust, creating a rich, savory interior. The pie was sliced into even portions, making sure everyone left the table full. Number 18, hamburger soup. Hamburger soup was the kind of name that made people pause, wondering what exactly it was supposed to be. In reality, it was very simple. Ground beef, vegetables, and rich broth simmered together into a warm, hearty pot of true comfort food for cold nights. It felt like eating a hamburger and fries, only everything came together in one spoonful, no oven required. The beef was browned first to build flavor, then simmered with carrots, onions, and celery. The broth slowly soaked into the meat, adding depth. A bit of tomato or tomato sauce added a hint of tang. If the pot needed stretching, people tossed in barley or pasta. The funny thing was, it often tasted better the next day, once all the flavors had time to meld. Hamburger soup was a clever way to turn 1 pound of beef into many servings, enough to feed a crowd on a tight budget. It was flexible, easy to riff on, and always left you feeling full and warm. Number 19, beef and potato casserole. Classic beef and potato casserole brings back memories of a time before 40-step Instagram recipes, when cooking was about simplicity and feeling comforted. Layers of browned ground beef, sliced golden potatoes, and creamy sauce could warm both the kitchen and the heart. There was always a generous sprinkle of cheese on top, because in Grandma's kitchen, more cheese meant more love. Maybe this dish faded out as the world chased superfoods and gluten-free diets, and this casserole was proudly neither. Its magic lay in how unfussy it was. Just a few basic ingredients, layered and baked until bubbling and fragrant. Everything fit into one pan, cleanup was quick, and there was still time to sit down in front of the TV and watch an old sitcom. Number 20, rag mop casserole. The name sounded odd, more because of how it looked than how it tasted. When noodles tangled through the baking dish, they resembled old mop strands, and the name stuck. This dish wasn't popular for being pretty, but for being practical. It was born to rescue leftover noodles, nearly expired pasta, and turn them into a filling family meal. Ground beef was browned with onions for flavor, then mixed with whatever pasta was on hand. Broken spaghetti, macaroni, or egg noodles. Canned tomatoes and tomato sauce formed the base, while cream of mushroom soup added richness and helped bind everything together. Seasoning was simple, just salt, pepper, and a few leftover herbs from the kitchen garden. As it baked, the pasta soaked up all the flavor from the meat and tomatoes, creating a firm, satisfying texture. If the budget allowed, a layer of cheese was sprinkled on top. This dish often lasted for multiple meals, and strangely enough, it tasted better with each passing day. Number 21, corn chip beef bake. This was the kind of dish that could only be born from a moment of kitchen improvisation. Maybe it started one night when someone spotted an old bag of corn chips and decided to use it up instead of throwing it out. From a quick fix, the dish quickly became a regular family dinner. It had the familiar flavor of tacos, but packed into a warm casserole dish that was easy to portion and filling to eat. If these dishes bring back the smell of old kitchens, simple dinners, and the feeling of being truly cared for, hit subscribe to keep remembering and preserving these fading food memories.